Hello and welcome to the very first podcast here at Masters of Our Minds. Today I join forces with Iris, a healer and a guide from Iris Energetics. Throughout this podcast we will delve into topics such as healing, morphogenics, reality, quantum physics and inner growth. Iris will take us on a journey of exploration, helping us uncover the interconnectedness of all things and tap into our potential for healing and growth, and shed light on some of the obstacles that hold us back from reaching our full potential. From the fascinating realm of morphogenics to the mind-bending principles of quantum theory, we will explore the depths of reality and its practical applications. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of inner growth and personal development, and how conscious awareness can lead to positive transformations. Join us in this adventure of self-discovery and empowerment as we open our minds to new perspectives and embrace the transformative power of healing. So, hello Iris, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm really excited about this. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Of course. Well, I'm working with Morphic Fields and energy. So basically what happened was during the COVID pandemic, I started meditating and I had a really significant spiritual breakthrough. And I discovered a lot of things. Um, but what was most important is I discovered this method of healing and energy work. And I just found it so transformative. And so many problems that had plagued me my whole life got so much better. And I even think about this was about 3 years ago. And I would say I don't even feel like I'm the same person that I was 3 years ago when I started all of this. So as I've been studying
I would
this,
be surprised if you was the same person after all, going through that sort of change. I presume that when you had the meditation and when you started meditating and I'm not sure what happened to you, but I presume it was profound and it opened you up to things that you didn't realize or even thought were possible. And so I'm not surprised you saying that you're a different person since then.
yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I realized so much about the ways that we influence each other, about quantum entanglements and how we're all so connected. And I realized a lot about my own abilities and my own powers. I shouldn't say me, but all of us have that in ourselves, but I kind of had the individual experience of learning it.
Yeah, I believe that
And
we all have
yeah,
some
and
sort of
we
capacity.
all do. Exactly. So it was very profound, and now this is something I'm exploring to share with other people.
Okay. So how are you exploring that? How does that look?
Yeah, so I have a website. So I offer healing and I also offer intuitive psychic readings. So
Okay.
the way
Wow.
that it works, yeah, the way that it works is if somebody has an issue that they want healing on, which could be anything, it could be healing of a physical issue in their body, it could be an emotional issue, psychological,
Mhm.
or just a problem that they're having in their life. So they're having issues with their job, they're having issues with their spouse, they're having issues with their kids or their friends or colleagues, anything. We're able to shift that in a session energetically. And it took me, when I first realized that it was possible to influence somebody energetically from a distance who I don't even know. I mean, I first realized that when my teacher did some work in healing on me. And it took me a long time to kind of accept that idea. But once I did, it was really incredible. And what I'm finding is I think people are slowly opening up to the idea that that's possible, which is really great to see.
Yeah, I hear you with the acceptance of how it's even possible. So, I took a deep dive into. I actually started off from a scientific perspective, which actually led me to spiritual insights. And as I explained to you before, but in our first call, but um,
Mhm.
so how do you think that um, that it works? What do you think the mechanisms are between you and the person that you are trying to heal? Do you think it's all you? Do you think it's all them? Do you think it's a bit of both, or do you think there is something else going on as well?
I actually think it's all three things.
Or you
So
think,
I think it's all three things. So I think it's me, it's them, and it's something else. So I think the something else that's really important here is I'm an educated person, but I don't have a background in physics.
okay,
So I'm not going to presume to be an expert on this, but from what I've read, just being really interested in these things, is quantum entanglement, something that Einstein called spooky action at a distance, which he didn't
hmm,
really like to think about, is basically the idea that when you look at particles, they change, and you can do that from a distance.
yeah, the observer,
So yeah, because of the Big Bang, I mean, we all were one. We were all in a singularity, and then it expanded, and we're all going back. So because we were all one at one point, we're all still connected. So that's the reason that I can influence somebody who isn't even anywhere close to me, who I haven't even seen before.
yes, totally. So quantum theory does state that separation is an illusion, right? And but that
Exactly.
sounds very similar to what was discovered thousands and thousands of years ago from mystics and sages from the past. And
Hmm.
it seems like we are rediscovering what was discovered in mystical or altered states of consciousness thousands of years ago, and now we have scientific evidence to actually support that. And yeah, I think that's definitely um, it's like a remote viewing. How is it possible? Why does the
Exactly.
CIA? Why did the CIA have a project for 20 years called Project Stargate, training psychic spies to get information from the Russians? Um, and in the paper, Project Stargate, it explains how separation is an illusion, and being as
Hmm.
we are basically all connected. Obviously, they don't have the hippie definition for it, but they have their own, ones and zeros definition from it. But to me, it all sounds woo woo, and it's all brilliant. And they
Hmm.
explain how, yeah, it's the quantum entanglement, the nature of superposition, and yeah, separation is an illusion. So if you can get to a meditative state, set an intention, you can see something regardless of the distance. So I can see how there's mechanics there that would that you are tapping into.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just a matter of I'm as I say it, it sounds simple, but it can be, of course, a process. But it's really about kind of transcending duality and realizing there's no me, there's no you. We're all one, as you highlighted so nicely. Remote
Yes.
viewing is very interesting too. I did a lot of remote viewing during COVID as well. It's one of the, and for a while I got very good at it. I haven't been practicing as much these days, but that was one of the things that really surprised me that, wow, this is a real thing and I can do it. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned three things. So is it me? Is it them?
Yeah, that's
And is
something
it
else.
the wider thing? So I think people that are open-minded and that do things to expand their consciousness. So, for example, I meditate quite diligently. And there's people that have other spiritual or consciousness expanding practices. So that puts me in touch with certain realms, or it kind of makes me more in touch with the one or the all or everything, anything that you want to call it, God. Some people call it that.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess a lot of people tap into that through praying, through maybe use of psychedelics. There's different channels, but for me, it's meditating. So that really puts me in such a different state of consciousness. And I feel like my consciousness has expanded so much since I started doing this. So it gives me an ability to better tap into the person I'm trying to help. Sometimes I get intuitive information about that person even a couple days in advance of talking to them. I feel things in my body often when I'm working on them. And I'm curious to see how this will work as I continue on this journey. Maybe I'll become better at this and I'll have even more experiences.
I'm sure you
So
will.
that's how it's
I'm
working.
sure you will.
Yeah. So that's how it works with me, but also with the person. They also have a role in this. So it depends also on their level of receptivity and openness.
Hmm.
So if I have a person that, like I think me and you, I did a little bit of work on you and we talked a little while ago and you were so open to it. So everything was moving through your body very quickly. You were, responding to me. And sometimes I'll have people who are the same, like the sensations will come, they'll expand them, we'll move through, and things will shift for them, and they'll feel differences quite soon.
Hmm.
And for some people, they have very deep conditioning against this kind of thing. So even if they genuinely want to be receptive and open, there's a difference between knowing something in your mind, but and really knowing it and feeling it in your body, in your
Yes.
physical body, in your etheric body. So sometimes that conditioning for people is so deep that
Hmm.
it can take quite a lot of effort to remove it. So that's where, and there's things that people can do aside from a session with somebody like me to remove it on their own. But sometimes people don't have time to do that, so that's why they really rely on a healer. So to get them
Yeah.
started. So it's really three things. I mean, it's first and foremost, I think the power of the universe and quantum entanglement, and then it's the practitioner, me in this case, and then it's also the openness and the energy of the person.
Yes, and I suppose intention, how as you was saying, how the client will be receptive to it. They have to
Mhm.
set the intention to be receptive, and sometimes they don't even realize that they would have that type of you know preconceived idea that would just keep up a block, so it's not so effective. So knowing how to set an intention to get over that hurdle must be a bit of a challenge, right? And as you said with me, when we did our session, um, I can heal myself. Like I have healed my knee. I've healed whenever I start to feel like I might be getting ill. I concentrate, set intention um, of, well, not resisting some sort of entropic, physical ailment or whatever it is that's
Mhm.
being expressed or I feel that's coming up inside of me. So when I um, so when you was healing me,
Mhm.
I was that was a very insightful experience for me personally, because on that day I was going through some intense
Yeah, I
roller
remember.
coaster of emotions. Of I had good news and I had bad news. I had and I always try to maintain balance no matter what I'm going through. So I hadn't yet I hadn't yet done my own inner alchemy. So when you offered, I was like, I jumped on that opportunity and allowed you. So all I did, the only
Well,
thing
thank you for your trust.
was set the intention to be open. So I made a very direct intention not to move anything around in me, not to alchemize anything inside of me. I wanted to give you the opportunity to do that. And how it felt within me was so much different from how it is when I do it on my own. So I I can vouch for your abilities from my own experience, that there's definitely something to it, that you're definitely doing something. And I love the speed at which you could do it.
Oh, thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, it was
It's
amazing. It was
interesting.
really good.
Yeah. I think what's really lovely about your experience is that you're able to alchemize yourself so well. And that I think is beautiful.
I've been doing that for a
Myself,
while.
yeah, myself, I'm still at a stage where I find it much more challenging to work on myself than to other people. But I always try to
I find it the
let people
other way
know.
around.
Yeah, but I always try to tell people that, of course, this power is in them and they can certainly do it. And I think Joe Dispenza is a really good proponent of that as well. But myself, maybe that's a block I have to work on for myself or get assistance of. The belief that I can't heal myself is still somehow in my vibration.
I find it easier when it comes to energy healing, which I have not so much experience on when it comes to doing it with other people. Um, but when it comes to I'm competent with healing myself. But when it comes, like when I've tried to do it with other people, I haven't been uh, researching how to do it properly. I tend to take on that person's pain. So, for instance, my colleague's girlfriend, she had a back problem, lower back problem. I healed
Okay.
that. She said it went, and as she was saying it was gone, I started to feel something in my lower back. So then I had to focus a session on myself to get rid of that, which is and that was a common thing. But it wasn't my area of focus, so I just kept on focusing on myself and leaving that for it's not something that pulls me in or drives me because I think I get in my own way with some of the things or the ways I think about it. But when it comes to my job as a life coach, that's that comes really easily to me. So that's what I focus on. So when it comes, what uh, what challenges do you face, or have you faced when it comes to, or what challenges did you face at the beginning? How did you go from realizing this deeper truth about yourself
Yeah.
to healing yourself, to healing others, and then opening a online business about that? How did that evolve? What were the steps that
Yeah.
and
So
the
I think
challenges that you had to
the
overcome?
challenges. So I think it hasn't really been a linear journey, actually. So
It very rarely is.
I, yeah. And I think you probably are really familiar with that being a life coach. And I think it's so great that
Yeah.
you found kind of an angle or a niche for this and you're able to teach it to people. Because
Yes.
I'm working on getting people to open their energy and open their hearts, but I think it's so often the case that you have to convince people's minds sometimes before they're willing to open up. So I think it's fantastic what you're doing. For
Yeah, I'm
me,
trying to bridge the gap. Yeah.
yeah, transcend duality.
Yeah.
But for me, I was very fortunate, I think, to find the teacher that I found. And
What
I
was her
have
name again?
her name is Saria Din.
Suriadan.
Yeah. So I was so fortunate to work with her. And I found her I was Googling different things to do with consciousness during COVID. And I
Mhm.
just stumbled upon her. And the first connection I had with her was so profound. So I would definitely say it was life-changing. So I really came to believe in this work because of the experience that I had. So I went from being a person who always believed in maybe extrasensory perception and psi phenomena, but the idea that one person can physically influence another via distance was something that was not easy for me to accept, let's say. But once I saw it, it became impossible to not see it. So I realized that that's extremely powerful, and I benefited immensely from that. Some issues that had plagued me for many years that I didn't think I would ever be living without actually cleared. I became a lot happier. I became a lot calmer, and I started wanting to learn this, first of all, for myself, and maybe to support my very close family and friends.
Mhm.
But at some point, it just seems, why am I not trying to share this with other people? at least those that are somehow open to it, because I just feel that this work is
Yeah.
so powerful. And I think we are reaching a time in human history where people are looking for something greater. And I think a lot of people had a spiritual I think a lot of people had spiritual experiences during COVID. That's the impression I had because people had so much time to themselves. It was such a huge disruption. And
Yeah.
I do feel that that happened for a lot of people, and now they're kind of still looking.
I kind of agree. Well, I do agree, except that I think it came from the struggles of COVID, the challenges and
Yeah.
the um, the kind of being forced into asking themselves questions, being locked up all day in their house. What is going on? What have I been doing? And what am I going to go back to? And the disenchantment of the government of our systems, our way of life, and you know, a lot of people got an opportunity to actually, you know, whether they wanted to or not, they were forced to be with themselves without
Yeah.
you know, wake up, go to work, come back, eat, watch some TV, spend a little bit of time with your family, and then go to sleep and repeat. But with COVID during a lockdown, with what you know, with no work, you're kind of forced to look at that. So I see how that could be the case, that a lot that there was a paradigm shift, definitely, but you know, it was also a trigger of a massive mental health crisis where there was a 40% uptick in suicides, right? So that struggle
Oh, yeah.
led
It
to
was definitely.
good and bad. So it's not
Hmm.
just a one-sided thing. But
Yeah.
like I was saying to you the other day, how I think that things are going to get a lot worse before we sort our lives out collectively. I think that it doesn't seem we've struggled enough individually or collectively. Otherwise, we would have you know, you'd see a progression of growth, healing, and organization instead of it seems to be going down into entropy as a collective. So this is why, you know, what you do is important. This is when you said about how you felt that you couldn't just keep that to yourself or something like that. I can't remember exactly what you said, but I felt that similar way. I was just, you know, at peace, doing what I do with my routines. You know, in
Hmm.
my family, with my daughters and my partner, everything was, you know, good for the most part. And you know, I turn on the news, I go on social media, I look at what's going on, and it's like you can't just. It's a bit weird when you're at peace and you're just chilling, and you're watching everything, you know, the world in flames outside, and you just I can't just sit
Yeah,
here.
and it's,
I'm
you
sure
can't
I
just
can
sit here.
share something to help because I've sorted my life out through great suffering and pain from, you know, day one and ongoing, and I do not let that ruin my life. I do not let that. Um, I do not give anyone power, anything power to stop me from living the life I want to live, and I will fight until, you know, until the end. And I, but you know, it's not like I have all the answers sorted out. I just know how to maintain balance. Let's just say, in a nutshell, maintain balance regardless of what's going on. And that's all I want to do. I would just want to offer that. You have your way, which I think is absolutely profound and beautiful. To be honest, if I could wish, um, if I could choose between something between what I do and what you do, I think yours is so much more magical in a way. I like the idea of what you're doing. It seems so much more. I'm not saying it's easy what you do. I don't understand it completely, but I think I love the whole idea of it, and that if someone comes to you for healing, for improving their lives in whatever way, overcoming their obstacles, you doing it your way with energy healing. It's that to me is like pure magic. It really
Oh,
is.
thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
But I would first say that you can do that. Of course, you can learn how to do it.
Hmm.
So if you have a choice between one or the other, you shouldn't look at it that way. You're limitless. Of course, you can learn how to do this.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, COVID was a horrible time for a lot of people. I mean, I think a lot of people had spiritual breakthroughs because they turned to that out of desperation.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, many people had a complete breakdown. I mean, it was very, very tragic. And
Hmm.
then you think about so many people have exited this plane through suicides, through getting COVID. It was really a difficult time. And then coming out of COVID, it's like just after COVID started, so many huge things happened to disrupt the collective just after. I mean, you look at the war in Ukraine started, which has had a huge impact on Europe, but the whole world in terms of global supply chains. And now when you look at what's happening in Gaza, it's very scary and it's very sad to think about.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of people are very affected by that. And I think it's it's something that I think a lot of people are thinking about. And I was reading something about Gen Z being a generation with huge amounts of mental health issues because the world just seems a scary place. And especially if you're young and you're trying to get things started and you're trying to make a plan for your life, it can be very, very frightening. So these are also things that make me want to spread this in the collective because I truly think that because we're all one, this is really a way to heal not just ourselves, but each other. So I don't know if you ever listened to Abraham Hicks, but she's somebody who I have found helpful in the past. And she says, you're not going to make other people healthy by making yourself sick. And she
Hmm.
also says, one person in alignment is more powerful than a million people not in alignment.
Hmm.
So her philosophy is the best thing you can do is heal yourself and try to heal the collective because they're all somehow connected to you and
Yeah.
try to spread people's knowledge that they're powerful and they can raise their frequency of themselves, of other people, and then so I feel like if people knew this, then maybe they wouldn't feel so hopeless and so powerless about what's
Yes.
happening in the world. And then it also might help the situation because I think a lot of this is happening because people are so out of touch with who they really are.
Hmm.
And that's why some of the people who are wielding a lot of power in this world have resorted to such catastrophic things and caused so much calamity to the collective.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The one of the biggest struggles with why people can't find their authentic self or find their true self or express themselves as they wish they would, I think it's because we don't live in a society that's geared towards doing that. If you, these days, if you say anything out of line in a certain group, you'll be kicked out,
Yeah.
and you'll get your head shot off if you say something that goes against that. And how everything's geared with social media, with the news, everything's polarized, organized into like echo chambers. Um,
Mhm.
it seems to be like we don't have enough options of where to go and how to find ourselves in a genuine, um, healthy way, right? So yeah, it's a very like what is the solution for that? I don't know, but the least that I can do is offer my services with my experiences and my expertise as a life coach, traditional life coaching and spiritual life coaching. I think that's the least that I can do, and I don't know how. I've learned. I try to, you know, save the world years ago at the beginning of my journey when I had my first when I woke up to um, the realization of what I was, and when I became disenchanted with what I thought, with how I thought the world worked, and that, everything's okay. We as humans know what's going on. There's nothing to worry about. We're always going to have someone who knows what to do, in in government or in the science institutions, who can tell us and say, and keep us going in the right direction. But as far as I can see it, they're literally the ones that are taking us in the wrong direction. So if it's the scientific institutions, which are for the most part materialists, that's not a
Yeah.
good that's not a good way to that's not a good message what they have. So they have, in a nutshell, without going too deep into it, it's like, you know what we're in, the reality we're in, is materialism. Everything is separated, everything's made up of objects and this thing called matter. And the universe doesn't care about you. So just, it's all just one big accident. There's no real meaning. So, just crack on and, keep going. That's crazy. That's a really bad mindset to have. It's even when I
It's very
was
disempowering.
Oh yeah, absolutely, massively. Even when I started, as I told you before, I was started off as a man of science and a militant atheist. And when I hear people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Lawrence Krauss, Richard Dawkins, those type of people, talk about how, well, what I just said about materialism, about reality, about what's going on. Um, I was never on board with that. I always thought, can't be, can't be an
Yeah.
accident, can't be an accident, and it can't be that there is no meaning there, that there isn't a reason why we're here. And then when you get into, when I advanced into quantum theory, um
Yeah.
when I got into quantum theory, and it starts talking about all of these things that I said that the mystics from thousands of years ago were talking about, um
Yeah.
it kind of disproves what they're claiming. That it literally states there is separation is an illusion. Um, Things come in and out of existence on the Planck second. Okay, how? What does that mean? That is obviously showing that there is some insane level of detail, some sort of feedback loop, some sort of because they all have everything that has to go down on the atomic level onto the quantum level, and to manifest into what we see around us.
Yeah.
It seems to know what to do. It's very doing a very good job of convincing my senses that this is solid. You know, it's doing a very
Yes,
good job,
exactly.
but ultimately, it's not the case, right? So, um, chain up. We I think we need to upgrade our perceptions, upgrade our understandings, and reflect on what is actually going on with us, what we're doing, why we're here, and what is the nature of, ultimate reality. How is it? What is going on there with? Why is it built in to the mechanism of reality? Why is it built in that it's all geared to having an observer looking at it? So,
Yeah.
as you said,
A
with spin
conscious.
action at a distance, what was confirmed with the double slit experiment,
Yeah,
is
this
um,
is a good one.
yeah, that's blows my mind. First time I heard about that I watched a video
It's
about the quantum
incredible.
double slit experiment like 10 times after, 10 times in a row, with the same level of bewilderment. And it just, like, that one experiment alone shows you that nothing that's going on outside of you is very important, because everything that's happening outside of you is happening for you. If you're not
Exactly.
looking at something, it literally shows you that if you're not looking at something, it doesn't exist. So without humans, there is no color, there is no sound. The moon doesn't exist when you're not looking at it, and trees do not make a sound in the forest if it falls and there's no observer around. It makes a vibration, but that's a vibration is a property of reality, and um,
Yeah.
sound is an observable state, is a quality of reality. But there is no sound, there is no love, there is no evil, there's no hate, there's no forgiveness, there's no justice, there's none of that stuff without an observer.
Yeah, there's
So
no
that's the type of
duality. And
that window. That's just without going too deep into it. That is just a massive signal going off to me. That's how it felt to me when I was learning about all of that stuff. That's a massive signal
it's
that there is
incredible.
something profound, absolutely meaningful, valuable, and intelligent, something with actual intention going on into whatever is going on with this within us. That's
Yes, it's
something,
incredible.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So,
Oh
so
yeah.
just that whole, so that was the Institute of Science. Um, my biggest gripe with it is, materialism is doomed. There's a shift within the scientific community, and they're moving away from that. The radicals like Neil deGrasse Tyson, they don't want to shift. They're the scientific educators. They're making all the documentaries, um, spouting on about how materialism is the way. It's not. It's not.
It's not. And I think it's so, you know, things don't die easily. So I think if you look at history, there's been, you mentioned that this knowledge is very ancient, but we've kind of lost it. And that loss wasn't an accident. I'll talk about the history of maybe Christianity because that's the paradigm I'm most familiar with. But if you look at the witch hunts, the way that so many things were excluded from the Christian Bible, it
Yeah.
was very deliberate to disempower people and make them think that there's nothing outside of themselves. And anybody that was tapped into that power was seriously punished in a lot of cases. So, but I think people are waking up to the fact that it's there. I just think that the scientific establishment, science is a great thing in some ways. I mean, the quest for knowledge through experiments, through empirical evidence gathering is
the
a wonderful
application
thing.
the application of science,
Yeah,
like as in like we wouldn't be able to talk about this without science, right? We wouldn't be able to have this conversation,
exactly.
which is magical in its own way if you really think about it.
Exactly. I think the scientific paradigm, as you mentioned, has brought us some magic. It's brought us some amazing things. But unfortunately, I think for a while we've been kind of spinning our wheels and we haven't really been looking in the right places as the human race, and our scientists have not really been asking, I think, the right questions. And I think there's a reason for that. I mean, there's many people that would feel really threatened by that. And I think there's a lot of, I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but I think there's definitely those who are very uncomfortable with that or feel that it would undermine their power. So if anybody listening is a reader, I would definitely recommend reading Real Magic by a man named Dean Radin. And he actually mentions that tons of empirical studies have been done that prove psi phenomena. I
Yeah.
think one of them being the CIA experiment, Stargate, that you mentioned. And they've just been attacked. There's a crusade against them. And it's become almost academic suicide to say you believe in any psi phenomenon, or even if you say you believe in the possibility of it, becomes a career killer. So there's really been something created to discourage our progress in this area. But I think Nikola Tesla said something like, as soon as mankind begins studying non-physical phenomena, will progress more in 5 years than we have in 500 years.
Yeah.
And I actually think that the next really big breakthrough for humanity is something to do with expanding our consciousness
Absolutely, absolutely.
and and realizing all these quantum things because I think if we keep looking at things in the materialist way, especially when you think about the climate crisis that we're facing, this is a serious issue that we have to solve. And what we're doing now is not working. I mean, okay, creating electric cars, all of these things are recycling. I think all these things are great, but I'm not sure they're going to be enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure about all that electric cars being the solution because
Mhm.
don't they require coal to power to generate the electricity that's needed to charge them? I'm
Oh,
not.
I'm not even sure about that. I guess I just mean that all these things we're trying to do from a materialist perspective to save the environment, I don't think are going to be enough. I think
No.
it's damaged beyond the point where we can solve it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, there was something that you said before about war and about how that's messing up the supply chain. Um,
Oh yeah, in Ukraine,
you
yeah.
know, and yeah, I don't really want to get into the uh conspiracy theories, but what Bill Gates is doing with the farmers all over Europe and India and the Green movement in India and all that, that's no conspiracy. And what he's doing is taking, he's going for land grabs and taking over, trying to take over the supply chain. So in Germany, where I'm currently living, there
Yeah.
have been massive protests where all of the farmers are getting together with truckers because the government is trying to get rid of the farmers by raising their taxes um, to basically stamp them out. And I think it's connected with what Bill Gates is trying to do because he's doing that all over the place. It was a couple of months ago where the um, farmers from Amsterdam were protesting against the government because they are trying to get um, rid of the meat industry over there. I'm not exactly sure. I don't. I haven't got into the details because, I try to keep a healthy distance from from
Of
that
course.
from that level of I can't just. There was a time when I was learning about the struggles that we go through on all scales, on all levels of life, where how kids make my clothes, how slaves basically make our phones and technology and all that crap. Um,
Yeah, it's very sad.
when you try to figure out what's going on, but then you get to a point where everywhere I look, it's bad, and there's nothing I can do. There's hardly anything I can do about it. So if I the more I keep learning about this stuff, that like in these factories where they have nets over the factory housing, so the employees don't jump out the window. Um, what am I going to do with that apart from lose sleep? I don't.
No, I
It's a
understand.
hard
And
balance to.
yeah, it's horrible. And this is why I think for so many reasons, like Gen Z is having a mental health crisis because they're aware of all of these unfair things. And as a young person, they're trying to look at the world. And for everybody, it's very depressing when you think about these things and you feel so powerless. But I think from my perspective, the more I think about it, because if these people that are in such disempowered situations, if they realized how powerful they are, and it would create collectively, it would create a bigger morphic field, it would create a collective awareness, and things would change. Because the way I understand things, yes, one person who's really awakened has a field, they have an energy around them that can help other people. But because we're all one, the way I understand things, Stephen, is that I don't want to say one person is limited, but it's very hard to totally disentangle yourself from the collective. And the more a collective consciousness focuses on something, the bigger it gets. So we're focusing on There's a climate crisis. There's all these people being enslaved. We're in hyper capitalism with no checks and balances. Things are so bad. The more collectively people focus on that, the more they get disempowered and the more we get that.
Yeah,
And even if you're a really awakened person, you can make yourself feel peaceful and you can protect yourself a bit and you can raise a frequency that still helps other people because we're all connected. But it's it's very hard to do that completely alone. And I do think that those in power, I haven't researched this to a huge level, but I do think those, let's say the 1%, are deliberately trying to keep us from knowing this power because it's benefiting them and they have a scarcity mindset, right? They have a belief that if some people gain something, they're going to lose something,
hmm
which is silly because we're limitless. So that's the way I see things, and I feel like the best way to help is actually to just spread to as many people as you can that they are powerful and that they can expand their consciousness and that things would change. I mean, if there's a book called The Religion of Tomorrow, I forget the author, but he kind of makes the case that if even 1 to 5% of humanity really expanded their consciousness, there would be a huge shift in the collective. And I think that's true. I think it's such a small number of people that have really, really focused on expanding their consciousness that it's
yeah.
not hitting the collective in a meaningful way yet. But I do think it could.
I
And I
would
think it
love
would
to see.
be a big
I agree. I agree. Sorry, I think I was over talking you then. Sorry.
okay.
So I was just going to say I agree. We need to see more studies of group meditation because I remember reading about one
Yeah.
a few years ago. It was I can't remember which state it was or which city it was in it, but it was in America, and
Yeah.
there was a group of a few hundred, maybe, people
Wow.
meditating and intending good intentions and stuff like that, love, blah blah blah, whatever it was on a particular city, and
Yeah.
the test was to check the statistics of crime, crime and hospital admissions over the coming days, and compare it to how it was previously, and it showed actually there was an effect.
I'm sure
So
that there was.
yeah, yeah. At the time of reading that, it was yeah, more than a few years ago actually. That was about 8, 9 years ago. I heard about that, and I was on the fence. I wasn't sure whether there was something to it or not. But the study showed that there was um, you know an effect, and it reminds me of the studies done with random number generators,
Okay.
where where someone, the subject, would intend to have the random number generator come up with more um, numbers above 5, and then over the
Hmm.
next hour it would actually come up with more, with that would blow out, it would overcome the statistical probability. So it wasn't just fluke.
Yeah.
All that stuff is controlled for. And then when he flips over to, switches back, don't do anything, nothing happens. When, okay, now intend numbers under 5, boom, that's what happened over the next hour. So there's definitely something to not only just the observer effect, but also the intention.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm thinking back to one of the things you mentioned that the world looks just the way we observe it. And I think anecdotally, I think every human who's spent any time around animals knows that there's things happening that we cannot see. And I mean, that's been proven. I mean, whales, dogs, birds, they can hear things we can't hear. And I don't know if you've ever had dogs are a very interesting example because we read their body language very obviously, and they can't really lie.
Mhm.
You know, whatever they're thinking or seeing, it's very clear from the way that they behave. So if you've ever lived with a dog, which I have, sometimes, and other people have had this experience, they'll just stare at something and start barking and snarling at it,
Yeah,
and
I've
you
had
have
that.
no idea what they're looking at.
Hmm. I remember
So
being
they're
as
clearly seeing
a
something.
sorry,
So they're
they've
clearly
definitely
seeing or
seen
hearing
something.
something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think so. So when I was a kid, um, I had my staffy in my room with me, and all of a sudden just
Oh,
started barking at something further into my room. There was nothing there. There was no one there, and I just ran out and ran to my parents. But when you started mentioning animals, I was thinking about. So when I was looking into near-death experiences, that research and reincarnation, I remember hearing reports of sometimes when like a doctor or a nurse has a dog in the ward that is
yeah.
friendly with the patients and all that. It actually there was a few cases where the dogs would actually go to the rooms of the people that were just about to die, like within the hour. And it also
Wow.
reminded
I
me
knew.
of some a report where there were some people, some tourists. There was in a boat going to view some dolphins in the ocean, and someone had a heart attack, and one of the dolphins started flipping out, and no one knew why. There was like, what do you think's wrong with that dolphin? Then the guide was saying that's new, and then someone starts, shouting for a doctor, or is there a doctor? Someone's having a heart attack, and then once that got resolved, the dolphins were chilled again. So, but the dolphins can't see into the boat. You
No,
know,
but they know it somehow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's also some
Which kind of,
theories of how wolves hunt so efficiently. They look like they're before they go out on a hunt. They look like they was on a drawing board going, right, Gary. You when I go this way, you go that way. Yeah, just like last time.
yeah.
Don't go over here. And then when he goes that way, you follow me. And if this happens, that happens. And they've been studied so well that it looks so planned. It can't be just um, they don't think it's just experience anymore. They think that there's some sort of telepathy or something like that. I don't think they're actually talking to each other mentally, but
No,
I think they feel they're so tuned into what's going on, what someone's intentions are. I think they're tapping into something. So I 100% agree. It's not just humans. We're not just we're not the we don't we don't have a monopoly on these magical abilities that we have of precognition, dreams,
no.
consciousness. We're not the only conscious sentient beings that feel pain or have these senses, that gut feeling, that intention. There are people that feel that sense that something's bad's going to happen. It's like Dean Radin. I remember hearing a podcast about him, with him, and he was saying how one day he had a dream about being in a car accident,
Yeah.
and when he was driving to work one day in real life in his waking state, he had a bad feeling that something was going to go down, and he had a feeling to take the next right and just go around it. And as he did that, uh, the car behind him got into an accident and he missed it or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but
Wow.
he was convinced. Basically, he was convinced that, and he had the feeling that it was whatever his gut was telling him. It was either a massive coincidence or there was something to it. And in my experience, there is no way that it's only coincidence. No way.
No, I don't think so either. And I've had many experiences like that. And I think most people have actually. They maybe not are open about it, but I think most people have had some kind of experience like that. But maybe they're afraid to give it too much credit. But I truly believe that intuition is in every human. So I think it's impossible that you go through a whole life without experiencing something, some kind of connection to it. Even if you try to ignore it,
Yeah,
it's somehow there.
yeah,
And I
well,
think animals are so lovely because they show us this so obviously, right? Because they're
yeah.
not deceptive. So it's so obvious to see this behavior in them and see their telepathy. Like I think that's something very, very nice for us as humans to watch.
I think that may be the reason why the animals can tap into it probably more
Yeah,
with more competence is because their egos are small. They're not as big as us. So
exactly.
we get in our own way.
Exactly.
We have our own we 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 have we don't use our minds right, and we have all of these preconceived ideas, and animals are just flow state most of the time. So
All the time, yeah.
yeah. So I think that they are, yeah, more prone to that.
Definitely.
Also, yeah, it reminds me of I don't know why I didn't use my own daughter for an example. So my eldest daughter, Haley, she is spooky, and I do not like playing games with her when it comes to rolling dice because she gets the dice, rolls it, and boom, she gets what she wants. But beyond statistical probability, it's insane. And her teachers talk to me about it like they don't like, what's up with your daughter? We don't like playing with her. She always wins. Um, and I play that memory game with her where you have a
Oh yeah, with all the
deck of
cards, yeah.
cards, and you have to match and pair them up. Um, I don't even know if like she's either got an amazing memory or she's using some other sort of intuition, and she's just like because I don't think it's just memory, because she for the first like she when she has a go, she just randomly gets it too much, too like beyond coincidence. It's
Yeah. Well,
ridiculous.
I think children are a lot more connected to this than adults are in some ways because they haven't had so much conditioning of society
Yeah,
yet. But how nice that she has a dad that's not gonna socialize that out of her, right? Because
yeah,
well
yeah,
intentioned, of course, that's what most parents do, right? Like you have to live in the real world, you have to study, you have to work, you have to get ready to do that for many, many years to survive.
yeah,
So that's what they tell the kids, and then
yeah.
they
Define the
lose
real
it
world.
very quickly. Yeah, exactly. So they lose that so early. So I think it's probably part of your, I'd say it's part of your influence that you're seeing there. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I really believe that as you do, we all have this ability. When it comes to children, and like I'm not sure about you, but I had some spooky, all sorts of spooky experiences as a kid that I could not explain until recent years, when I reflected on those experiences with what I understand today. But with
Wow.
my girl, with my girls, they, I, I am always trying to understand them. We talk about our dreams on a daily basis, because I think that's really important. And when it comes to what is possible, so like my both of my daughters, they practice healing. We maximize our scientific understanding of the placebo effect. Um, they're so much better healers than me. But we keep it in house, keep it private. But they go and talk to their friends about this. So this is becoming, so they're normalizing these concepts to their kids. So for sorry, not to their kids, to their friends, I mean.
Have
And
a
so
child friends, yeah.
now that's coming out into, so that is their real world. So years ago, when my daughter was, before she was like 7 years old, the eldest, came home one day and said that she had her friend sitting down in a semicircle meditating. And
Oh, how lovely.
yeah, I was
Oh,
so
sweet.
proud. And they both show me, like the small one, she is super sensitive to energies and stress, and she loves asking you about it. And and then she goes into doctor mode. Okay, close your eyes, and now and then she'll go and get some tuna forks, some singing bowls, and she's like, okay, what color
Oh,
do
wow.
you want? And um, you know, it's
Going into
just
the auras.
that intention, that innocent energy, that pure wonder and magic that just they're just conduits for. And that's what I try to keep alive. That was my point. Sorry for going on so many tangents, but that's my point. I know it's there. I try and stay out of the way, but I try to um, facilitate um, their development into things that don't just rely on our intellect, something that comes from our feelings, because that's what I wish happened to me as a child. I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of us need. Not even just children. I think there's a lot of 90% of adults. We all need to relearn how to come back into ourselves, how to relax,
Yeah.
how to have that innocence of that we had as a child, and that wonder and that drive. You know,
Yeah.
one of the biggest mysteries: where the hell are these kids getting all of that energy from? Where are they getting that energy from? It's just
Yeah.
all day long, just non-stop. Daddy, daddy, daddy. Daddy, look at this. Daddy, look at that. It's just that's wicked. That's wicked. I'm just trying to keep up with them. I'm not old, but where do they get that energy from? Just pure flow.
Yeah. It's so incredible.
Yeah.
I think there's something like Roald Dahl. Like, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a children's author. He
Who?
said something like Roald Dahl.
No, I'm not familiar with that one. Rings a bell though.
He wrote the BFG. He wrote, I can't remember
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he had this lovely quote, and he said, you know, gaze and wonder like a child at the world around you, because magic is found
Hmm.
everywhere. But those who aren't looking for it won't ever see it.
Yeah.
Like children, but children see it everywhere
100%. 100%.
because it is everywhere.
Yeah. That reminds me. What you keep mentioning morphic resonance a few times now.
Yeah.
Should we? Would you like to unpack that for anyone who doesn't isn't familiar?
Yeah, sure. So actually, during COVID, when I had my kind of spiritual breakthrough, and I was actually practicing remote viewing a lot, and I met my teacher and I experienced distance healing, and I was having trouble finding many like-minded people. I had a few people in my life I could discuss this with, but I was reading and reading so many things online, just anything to do with magic and psi phenomenon, and I went into a lot of rabbit holes. But I started reading about morphic fields,
Hmm.
and this is a very interesting concept, and science is starting to finally recognize that it's there. So a scientist named Rupert Sheldrake is the first person who kind of discovered this. And it's basically just the awareness that there are invisible kind of energies in this world that are fields of consciousness and intelligence, like you were mentioning earlier, and it's not accidental. And
Yeah.
animals are a very good source of showing us this. So I don't know if you've heard of the third monkey effect, but it's
No.
something they discovered was a certain type of monkey. They discovered that monkeys started washing potatoes in a certain area, and then they noticed that members of the same species of monkey that were far, far away and had never had exposure to this other troop of monkeys started doing the same thing. And they noticed eventually that more of this species of monkeys started doing it. So it's the belief that, or I shouldn't say belief, it's the recognition that members of the same species can tap into the same fields of intelligence. So
Yes.
there was also experiments done showing that the London crossword puzzle, people that do it the second or third day after it comes out tend to perform better. And IQ tests have to be changed because once they've been around for a while, people get better at them because that information is in the human collective. So even without realizing it, people are able to tap into those answers. And
Mhm.
that's why you see members of the same species, like the wolves you mentioned, or when you look at bees, like honeybees are incredibly organized beings, or salmon, they hatch out of their eggs. The parents are dead. They're all hatching at the same time. They've never met their parents, but they all know where to go
Yeah. Or like
because of
little
Morphic
baby sea
Fields.
turtles that, pop out and
Yeah,
go to the most craziest violent direction that they can possibly, go in.
yeah, exactly. But they know that's where they need to go. And it's
Mm.
very, I think it's incredible. Or I don't know if you've ever, I think we talked about this last time, but there's an author, I forget his name, but there's a book called Sapiens, and it's about the history of humans. And I think it's very interesting that humans in, South America, Asia, Europe, so many places, they all kind of progressed in the same way. They developed agriculture, then they developed religious or mythological beliefs, and then they developed kind of specialized economies and empires with some kind of centralized governments. And it's like all groups of humanity did these things independently.
Yeah,
Why would they all figure
that's
these
like
things out?
sorry, that reminds me of
Hmm.
megalithic megalithic sites all around the world. Why
Yeah,
were we all at one point where we didn't have contact with each other, apparently, and we were all starting to build these megalithic pyramids?
exactly. And so
Incredible.
many of these were, there's evidence that all of these different, I don't know if you've ever looked at this documentary by a man named Graham Hancock, but he's a
I
bit of an
have
eccentric
his
guy,
book.
but yeah, but he has this very interesting idea that humans have actually been living in civilizations much longer than many scientists think or historians think. And
The
I think it's
advanced.
quite possible. And yeah, I do think that once the information goes into the human collective and more people believe it, then it becomes more accessible, even to people that have never physically had contact with each other.
Well,
Which is why we need to spread this, Stephen,
sorry.
so more people will wake up. Which is
Yes,
why we need to spread this, Stephen, so more people
yes,
will realize, even
absolutely.
psychically.
Absolutely. And when it comes to Graham Hancock's hypothesis of advanced ancient civilizations that lived in the past, um, and in his first book, Fingerprints of the Gods, he was saying how he doesn't know what the culprit was that gave rise to the end of that great advanced civilization. But now in his Magicians of the Books thing, Magicians of, what is it called? Can't remember what it's called now. Magicians of the Gods. I think it's called Magicians of the Gods. Now, with scientific evidence regarding the era of the Younger Dryas, it's showing that there was multiple impacts from comets or an asteroid um, that struck the ice caps that were covering the northern hemisphere. And that's what gave
Okay.
rise to the great floods that we find in every single at least
Every religion, yeah.
250 religious um, scriptures throughout the entire world. They all talk about this great flood. People,
Yeah.
religious scholars thought, and archaeologists thought that it was a metaphor, but actually it correlates with the period of the Younger Dryas which was the end of the last ice age, which created
Okay.
floods around the globe that are almost unimaginable, which wiped out the advanced civilizations. And the evidence, what remained? The megalithic sites. And
Okay.
as you see with the megalithic sites, the older structures are better than the newer structures, hundreds or even thousands of years later. You would think that it would go from crude to more advanced and sophisticated, but it's not the case. So there's a loss of knowledge or wisdom and technology. there. So,
Wow.
but going back to the Rupert Sheldrake and his morphic resonance theory, um, the when you was talking about the when you do studies or when you do tests, that it goes into the morphic field. Um, he that stuff has been he's proven with some studies. I can't remember which ones off the top of my head, but I remember him saying that he had his son Merlin when he was doing his master's degrees or his PhD or something. That no, it
Yeah.
can't be. When he was doing something, Merlin Sheldrake, his son, got his friends to start answering um, the last two questions of the test, and which
Yeah.
would give everyone else time to do the first few answers. So then they would go back to the
Yeah.
question one, and he would allow the morphic resonance himself to tap into the morphic resonance, and he passed with flying colors. You know, that's not a
Oh,
controlled study.
fantastic.
That's just an anecdotal one, but I think it's yeah, really really interesting. So that his
Yeah.
him
And
and his sons are living that type of theory, that type of understanding.
oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. And I think you can play with these things in your own life to see that
yeah,
they're there.
well, the rat poison industry. I'm not sure if that's an industry that if you can call it that, but you know the companies that make rat poison,
Mhm.
they have realized that there is something going on, and it sounds like morphogenic resonance. So what they do is when they create batches of rat poison, they have to change
Yeah.
the smells within them, or how they have to mask something, or they have to add some sort of smell, because when the rats eat them, and then they die, and then their relatives, the rats around them notice, and they go, oh, my friend ate, my cousin, my family ate rat poison. Don't touch it. Remember that smell, people. Remember
Yeah.
that smell. Obviously, they don't say that, but
But
um,
they know it somehow.
yeah, they know that, and then they won't touch it. But then other rats up in the North England, they're starting to avoid it as well. Before they
Even
even
though they haven't been
before there
exposed
are
to it. Yeah.
hardly any of them are touching it. So then the companies are realizing that, so they have to keep swapping the batches to trick them,
Wow.
which is, you know, incredible.
Yeah, I actually think once you kind of open your mind to this, you really start to see that it's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, you really do. Did you get a chance to look into Michael Levin?
Not yet.
Not
I
yet.
I wrote it down a few days ago, but I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. But I have it saved on my to-do list. Maybe I'll do that as soon as we finish our conversation because I have some time today.
You're in for a treat. You're in for a real treat.
Oh, I'm sure.
He is so
Yeah.
Rupert Sheldrake.
Mhm.
He is the one who came up with the hypothesis. And oh yeah, not only is it animals and humans, it is also crystals. Crystals tap into the morphogenic resonance. Um,
Oh, wow.
you didn't know that?
No, but I mean, it's not hard for me to believe. And actually, I've
Yes.
heard some studies that plants are quite a lot more sentient than we once believed. So it doesn't surprise me that
Yeah.
crystals also would be.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's really strange with crystals because they're not. Are they exactly alive? They do grow, but they don't exactly reproduce, or in a normal,
Yeah.
living way. But yeah, they do. It 100% works with crystals tap into morphogenic resonance, and the study was creating novel crystalline structures that will give, yeah, that will grow these new type of crystals. Um, and then they documented how long it would take these new crystals to grow. So as they started growing, they're slow. But then as they had
Hmm.
practice and they started building their own morphogenic fields, the growth would increase exponentially. And then when you would go and
Oh,
send, go to, collaborate with a lab in Japan, I think they did. They got them to do the exact same thing with this crystal that they haven't grown before, but it was grown in England. And then they started to grow much faster, like twice as fast as they did in the first growth test. So
oh,
it's not just humans. I think it's everything, to be honest. I think it's every single thing, every atom, everything going on, what's going on down in the quantum world. I think that's where it
yeah.
originates. But yeah, talking just with that Michael Levin, I told you before, he's the one that's
Mhm.
showing literal with you can see it with our eyes, the morphogenic resonance within embryos with special devices that look for electromagnetic currents, that there's a morphogenic grid, or like when you're creating like when computer graphic artists are creating a certain character, they start off with a mesh and then they change the
Right.
dimensions of that mesh, and then they'll paste the outside what it would look like. um,
Hmm.
that's very similar to what's happening in biology as life grows. So the electromagnetic um, morphogenic grid can be seen, and then
Hmm.
it dictates how that life form is grown, where the eyes are going to be, where the nose is going to be. That stuff is already dictated by a morphogenic grid before it's expressed on a physical level. So which is blows my mind. And this guy is just a couple of months of winning a Nobel Prize. He's dropping so many truth bombs with this with his papers. He's got like 40 papers released, and wicked ones with collaborating with Chris Fields, and some really
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah, incredible stuff. So yeah, I can't wait to hear your reaction when you hear that stuff.
Yeah, that would be a lovely thing to talk about. And I mean, it's so interesting because when you think about quantum fields, I mean, what it will tell you is that if you're trying to, because one of the kind of entry points for a lot of people to come into spirituality is law of attraction, right? They read that book, The Secret, and then they start getting interested and they want to manifest things, right? And
Mhm.
one of the things it will tell you is that thing you're trying to manifest exists already in another realm, right?
Well, that
And this
realm is
proves that
probably the future
it's in the future
as
or
it
it's parallel or
manifested.
somewhere.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
who knows though? Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With our understanding of how morphogenic resonance works,
Hmm.
what do you think we should do about how we live our lives individually, focusing on the individual nature of our own lives? What do you think that we could do for our future selves with using our understanding of the morphogenic fields, tapping into it, uploading things into it, downloading that stuff later?
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing to do is just to realize how powerful we really are. Because popular narrative tells us that there's a leader, there's somebody in charge. Like you mentioned before, I think a lot of us hope, oh, some scientist is going to save us, political leaders are going to save us, something is going to save us. But
Yeah, the bankers have our best interests at heart.
yeah, yeah, or some other narratives. And I think you really are in charge of everything. And I think it's sometimes, well, I think for a lot of people that knowledge is liberating, and for some people it's frightening, and for some people it's something they find hard to swallow, but it really is. And we talked a lot about how the world shows up for us and that the double slit experiment and quantum entanglement and that your focus on things really changes them. So I would just say if you're new to thinking about morphic fields or to this thing, I would say start out small with what you want to manifest or what you want to change, because the more you see the results, the more your belief will grow. And so if you really believe that you're going to do something or that something's going to be attracted to you, it will come because that's the law of the morphic fields. You tap into that, you believe it, it will come to you. So you could start out with something small. I mean, for example, try to attract a type of food that you don't eat very often, but that you really like. And somehow it will show up. You'll be invited somewhere, somebody will bring it to you. Or think of something small you can attract. Or in terms of relationships, this is always a perennial issue for all human beings, right? So if you have somebody that you have a difficult relationship with, we tend to focus on the problems with that person. So what we resist persists and it keeps coming back to us because we're focused on it all the time, right?
Mhm.
But if you start focusing on the good things about that person, what do you like about them? I mean, I understand sometimes there's forced relationships in our lives and we think, why is this person my family member or my boss or my colleague? But they're still an extension of consciousness. So there has to be something positive about them
So
deep
you think
inside.
that
So
setting that intention to see them in a better way, they would like
it would
subliminally,
change.
unconsciously feel that, which would lower their resistances against you or something like that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've experienced that a lot. I've had some very difficult coworkers in my life who many people had issues with. And once I started doing this, they changed their behavior towards me. And it
Hmm.
was very interesting, even for other people to see. They would say, Aaron, this person is nicer to you than me, than other people. I don't know why. And I
Yeah.
would just smile and I would think, well, I know why. I know exactly why. But so I would say for people that are new to this, start out small and see the results. And I think for somebody that offers the type of service that I do, if you're somebody that has trouble meditating or praying or experiencing other types of consciousness, but you're open and you want to experience that and you want to tap into morphic fields, I would say that having a session with somebody like me, I'm not saying it has to be me specifically, there's other people out there, but I think that's a place to really help, especially if you're
Someone,
somebody who
someone
has
who you
deep
resonate with, right?
conditioning, somebody who you resonate with. So if you're having trouble, if you believe these things in your mind, but you're having trouble believing it in your body and in your energy, because some people do, and I think that's where my services are really valuable and yours are really complementary because you're telling this to people's minds and I'm helping them see it in their heart. So once I heal somebody and they really start to see the differences, then they realize, well, if Iris can do this, I can do it too. And I can guide them and I can help them. But it's in everybody. I'm just maybe more sensitive to it. So some people have really deep conditioning. I had really deep conditioning around certain things, and I just wasn't able to get past it without my healer. So I don't want to disempower everybody because maybe if I meditated more or if I probably would have got through those blocks eventually, but having a healer helped me do it faster. So I would say look at where you are, see what you can manifest on your own. Start out small, and if you feel like it's not working for you, then there's somebody to help you because some of us have very deep conditioning, especially if we had a background really strong in science, or if we're really I find also people that have been brought up with a lot of religious conditioning. I find sometimes it's very hard for them to come out of that because it's quite deep, and sometimes it's even gone. Myself, I've seen some of my past lives and I've taken some religious vows that in other lifetimes that disempowered me a bit. So it took me a while to work through those as well. So I would just say look at your blocks, but also don't forget that you're limitless. And even if you feel blocked now and you feel like you're not manifesting what you want, it doesn't mean that you'll never get there.
Yeah, that's an awesome message. So let people know where they can find you Facebook, Instagram, website? I'll put
Yeah,
links.
actually,
Just the
sure. Thank you. My website is Iris Remote Energy Clearing. My business is called Iris Energetics. And yeah, I think the easiest way to reach me is Facebook or my email, irisenergetics@gmail.com. And yeah, I would love to hear from anybody. And thanks so much for the opportunity, Stephen, to talk with you. It's been lovely.
Yeah, definitely. Not a problem. This was I knew this was going to be very interesting, and we next time we need to. I would like to hear more about your teacher, your healer, because that
Okay.
was something that I wanted to leave for this. But you know, this isn't scripted, and it's organic, and it's what comes up to us. And I'm sure I could talk about this until the electricity ran out.
Me too, me too.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time, and yeah, I wish you the best, and we'll stay in contact.
Okay, Stephen. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.